Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm George Christie with the Wine Industry Network, and welcome to episode 5 of the WIN Educational Webinar Series. Today, we've got a great educational session, 2 terrific guest speakers to talk about leveraging tech to survive and thrive. Our 2 presenters, Christina Curiazzi, Vice President of Marketing for Ecos, an all-in-one winery management software designed specifically for winemakers, and Chris Tout, CEO of VineSpring, a subscription-focused commerce platform. Welcome, Christine and Chris.
Thanks so much, George. It's so good to see everyone here.
So just to give everyone a little bit of background on this particular session, Ecos and VineSpring are 2 of the industry vendors that we work very closely with. And what I liked about this is that there's certainly been a lot of webinars that talk about e-commerce and different things that you could be doing, especially during this pandemic, that have been just terrific. And certainly there have been webinars that talk about business management software and the way you can leverage that technology to better your business. But what I liked about this particular session was bringing these 2 technologies together. Even these are 2 separate companies. Chris and Christine have never presented together, right? This is their first time. But what's really cool about it for me is these 2 technologies, and in a lot of cases at wineries, you might have 2 different pieces of technology that you're using, but they shouldn't be operating in a vacuum, right? Things need to be looked at from a holistic perspective. And so to me, when we started talking about doing this particular session, that's how it made me feel. It's like that we should be looking at things from the bigger perspective and how the different programs that we're putting together really impact the business as a whole. So it just got me super excited to hear what you guys had to say today.
All right, we're very excited to be here.
Awesome.
Yeah, thanks for having us, George.
Yeah, no worries. So, Christine, I think we're going to start with you. Then we're going to finish with Chris, and then I'll come back at the end. We'll take some questions from our audience, and we'll go from there. All right. So, Christina, I'm going to jump out. Why don't you go ahead and jump into the presentation, and we'll see you in a little bit.
Perfect. All right, thanks so much. It's so exciting to be here today. I will jump right in. So just a little bit of an agenda. George just went over it, but we'll try to do this as quickly as possible, but we want to give you guys as much value as possible. I'll go first. We'll kind of talk about some trends that are happening in the market right now. I'll show you some data, and then we'll talk about managing the back of your office, and then we'll shift over to Chris, who's going to talk about direct-to-consumer trends and how to manage the front of the office. So we're going to kind of cover everything today. So George already kind of talked about me a little bit, but a little bit of a summary. I've been with Ecos since 2019. Ecos is a business management software for wineries. So we help with inventory, production, management, accounting, and sales. I've been in marketing for over 12 years, and I'm just here to share best practices and insights, market insights. I look at data all the time, and I talk to a ton of customers, wineries and craft beverage producers across the world. So these are some of the learnings that I've heard from various peers, as well as some of the best practices for market data. So let's jump right in. I always like to start with a strong quote. So this quote has been hanging on my wall since this whole pandemic started. And I think it rings so true for every kind of business, no matter what business you're in these days. I think we all realize that those that are going to survive are going to be the ones that adapt to change the most. And I can't tell you, at least in my career so far, there's never been such swift change that has happened overnight, and we've all had to adjust to so quickly. So this quote kind of always rings true to me, and it's kind of the underlying preface of this whole presentation of how do we keep adapting to change, because change is going to keep coming. So as a true marketer, I love to look at market data, and I pulled a couple of things from the market out there. So there's a free tool out there called Google Trends. You can go search it, and you can basically plug in different search terms and see what your customers are searching for. I love to look at consumer trends just to try to understand what are people thinking during these times and how is it shifting over time. So it was very interesting to me when I plugged in the keywords of, buy wine online. Those were the keywords that people are searching for. You can see a pretty clear trend here of what happened right as COVID hit. Of course, a lot of people were very much used to getting their wine in certain places, and all of a sudden, as those places closed down, they kind of panicked. They're like, okay, can I get it online? So their immediate mind shift was to go online to figure out, where do I get my wine? You can kind of see on the right-hand side some related queries. So this is what people might have also searched for: where to buy wine online, buying wine in Pennsylvania. I believe Pennsylvania had some pretty restrictive stuff going on with alcohol, wine and spirits online, total wine, wine and spirits. Those were all kind of related terms that people were searching for. If you dive into Google Trends, you can see a lot more insights, but this is kind of a summary report for this keyword search. As you would expect, it kind of peaked during the peak of the pandemic, and ever since things have been reopening, the trend has been going down. But you can kind of see, I think I took this screenshot right as the news media was starting to talk about the pandemic not really slowing down since things were reopening. People are starting to shift back again into that trend. I don't think we'll see something as grave as what we saw back in April, but it's a very interesting thing to see how consumers kind of shifted their behavior overnight. At the same time, I also wanted to look at the flip side of, okay, what is the keyword of wineries open yield? And you can clearly see that right around early May, I think that's where the government started to talk about reopening. People were starting to get very, very eager about, are wineries open? I think some of the key search terms, Napa wineries was one of the top search terms. People were curious if Napa wineries are opening or if a winery is open near them. People were just very, very curious. And it's very interesting to see that shift. It almost feels like whiplash. Like 1 minute, the consumers are searching for stuff online. Next minute, they're like, can I go in the tasting room? So really, this to me is kind of very, very rudimentary data that shows us that the consumer's behavior kind of changes on an ongoing basis, and really our world runs in real time at a much, much faster pace than it did before. Some additional data from some recent webinars that I've actually been able to attend, and some data from SVB and Nielsen that I've included here also show that there's been a clear shift during the pandemic. This was, again, during the April peak. It went from phone and e-commerce order being on average less than 3% of wine sales at that time. It came to almost 30%. And same with Wine Club, it went up quite a bit. So you can kind of see how consumers shifted that demand from, going in the tasting room or some of the more traditional methods of getting their wine to now shifting to online. I don't think that the online piece has 100% made up for the losses on the other side, but it definitely was a very vast shift that happened in the consumer demand space. Another key point that I think was really glaring is this key point from Nielsen is, when you look at all of the online sales of alcohol, especially when it comes to wine, beer, and spirits, wine actually dominates the online sales of alcohol. So there's a clear opportunity here, obviously, that a lot of you guys are seeing and have seen for quite a while now with e-commerce that I think is going to continue to happen over time, especially as things change from fastly, it seems, from day to day over the next few months. Another key trend that I thought was very interesting, and again, this shows data just from the time of the pandemic, but it was really the fact that a whole new world of buyers opened up when e-commerce opened up even more for wine. And what this data shows is basically that the increased wine sales online were actually driven by new consumers buying wine. So to me, as a marketer, this really says that there's a huge opportunity for wineries right now to reach those hard to reach consumers that you've probably been trying to reach for a while. E-commerce sales usually happen from the younger demographic. We all know the millennials have been hard to reach, and this might be one of the opportunities to reach that demographic while also maintaining your traditional model in person when things do fully reopen. So in other words, this is how I feel every day. All these consumer trends, again, they kind of give you whiplash. It's like one thing over here, the next thing over there. And really what this is telling me is a few things. It means to me three core things. So there's going to be new buying behaviors and buyers in the mix that kind of mix up with old habits. So I think wineries and other, craft beverage producers are going to see new buyers coming in, new buying behaviors. Obviously, the consumers pushed to online during the crisis, but now they want to go back in person. So as things change over time, I think we all need to adjust to make sure that we're serving the upcoming trends of e-commerce, as well as the old habits of folks coming in person and kind of the traditional model of selling. Number two, I think it's never been more obvious that technology is more important than ever. I heard from quite a few winery owners that, as soon as COVID hit, I now had to figure out how to manage my business digitally, which was much more of a challenge than a lot of folks wanted to admit. But simple things like managing work orders, digitally or remotely from your team, or being able to manage your e-commerce store remotely and all that stuff, communication remotely with your team, that became a big challenge overnight. And those that didn't have the technology to support it really struggled with this. But others that did have some technology infrastructure, they had sort of a leg up, but it was still a struggle. And I think the third trend, macro trend that we need to be watching is really the access to data and what that means for making good business decisions. I think we all felt it. The change that happened, it really truly happened overnight. And we were all pushed to make decisions about our business in a matter of a day or two. I mean, this was very, very swift change that happened, and it had to happen in a very, very fast pace. So all the decisions that we made, they all kind of happened overnight. And without the access to the right data, are you really making good business decisions? So all these things are kind of piling up on top of each other. New buying behaviors, the importance of technology and the importance of data are, I think, going to define really the future of the wine market overall. So why am I talking to you about this, really? I wanted to kind of split the presentation into two things, and it really is about, how do you leverage technology to manage the back of your office, and then how do you manage technology to manage the front of your office? And when I say that, those are very technical terms. When I think of back of your house or the office, it really means, your inventory, your production, your accounting sort of backbone. And when I say the front of the office or the front of the house, I mean all your sales, whether it's direct to consumer, your tap room, et cetera. So I'll be going through all the business management trends on the back of the house, and then Chris will be taking over for the front of the house. So if you haven't learned anything about me so far, is that I love my good quotes. This quote really rung true to me. I've been trying to read as many business books as possible, and this one was just so true. When times are hard, prepare for when times are easy, and when times are easy, prepare for when times are hard. And this is always true no matter what era you live in. I think good business management means that you're always prepared for the next thing. An underlying condition here is the fact that there's always going to be change. And those that are going to win are going to be the ones that are going to be the most adaptable to change. And change sometimes happens very fast, and other times may happen very slowly. But the truth of the matter is that, good business management entails being prepared for the worst and the best at all times and kind of looking to the future. So one of the core things that, especially when I talk to CFOs and folks that are managing businesses or business owners, that they tell me is the importance of data, the importance of being able to monitor your business in real time. And this, I think, came to the forefront during the COVID crisis, but I think it'll continue to be one of the most important things that you can do. And regardless of what business you're in, you're always going to want to have real-time data. So these are just some questions that when I talk to CFOs at wineries or other craft producers, these are some of the questions that they ask themselves on an ongoing basis, and they want to be able to find almost in real time or on a regular basis. And one of the things that they keep telling me about is that tracking things manually no longer can afford us the luxury of being able to track these things in real time. So unless I have a system, unless I have the right technology to manage it all and to track it all in a place online, then I really can't monitor my business the right way. So this poses, I think, a huge conundrum for all businesses. How do you monitor your business in real time, and sometimes maybe remotely too? So this is a model that I actually kind of borrowed from one of the accountant partners that we work with, and he works with a lot of alcohol, beverage producers. And his core tenet here is that in order to make good business decisions, you need to have good business data. So if you start sort of at the end, to make good business decisions, you need to have the right financial reports, right? So you need to be able to, have the very basics, your balance sheet, your income statement, your cash flow statements. I believe most of you guys are going to have these no matter what, but this is a very, very basic tenet. In order to get that, you need to have set up your chart of accounts. As you know, those are those high level categories of revenues, expenses, assets, and liabilities. And in order to get that, you need to have set up your general ledger, which basically is your line item tracking of everything from, the ins and outs of the business, what's going in the business and what's going out of the business in terms of cash, your inventory, your investments, equipment, etc. And really, in order to do this, you need to have good business operations and business practices. So that could be everything from how you document your inventory, how you document and track your sales, what kind of analysis you can do, how you're expensing your equipment and how you're maintaining your equipment over time, how you're ordering, packaging, and all that stuff. I mean, it really is, it comes down to all the details, your day-to-day, how do you run your business day-to-day in order to be able to get all of these financials, all of this financial data in real time so you can make good business decisions. So let's start with a few of these things. And one of the core things that I think everyone thinks about is inventory management. And I've noticed that, quite a few people will start off and start tracking things in spreadsheets, which are very helpful, or maybe whiteboards. But really, I think what the COVID crisis especially taught us is that that may not be enough. And you may need a system to track everything into it, from grain to glass. And the truth is, your business runs, I'm sure, at 1,000,000 miles an hour, especially at certain times of the year. And you may need some more advanced tools in order to be able to track things in real time. So you may need, more visual tools to be able to track and view your facility and your inventory in real time. For example, your CFO or, as a business owner, you may want to see that in real time so you can run the right reports and make the right decisions. Your team may also want to easily transfer stuff from tank to tank or to storage, so that as you're doing it in the physical world, you're also doing it in your system, so that all of your people can easily see where stuff is, and it communicates back to your accounting system, and you have sort of a closed loop process. You also want to be able to track and monitor your finished goods inventory so that you can fulfill your orders, and that both the back of the house and the front of the house can speak to each other. And then you also probably want to track what's in your barrels, your tanks, how long has it been there, what went into it, so that hopefully as you think about, your next batch or your next year's production, you can go back and easily see what you did last year. Another thing that you can also do is by inputting everything into one system, you can define, for example, reorder points for things like packaging. If you're going to run X number of, production over the next few months, you're going to need X, number of packaging. If you start to deplete that over time as you're producing, then you want to have a system that alerts you to that, because you don't want to run into that issue last minute. So really, having a system that can help you track inventory from grain to glass is really, really important, beyond just spreadsheets and whiteboards. This is one example. This is a screenshot straight out of Ecos, but this is an example of, some inventory management. We try to make it as visual as possible. We know your time is really, really valuable, and as your team kind of moves around, it's really important for them to be able to see everything in a visual way and to be able to drag and drop, because you don't have time to play around in a system. You want to be able to find the right information where you need it. So having a visual way to kind of easily see the information and transfer information is really, really important, something to think through. So let's talk about production. Let's talk all about working smarter and not harder. I was talking to, this is one of our customers, but Keith Bishop, he's the owner at Bishop's Orchards Winery. And he was telling me that as he grew his business and he was producing more and more, he started to bring in more people, especially for his production process. And it was getting very, very hard to rely on verbal or paper records or even spreadsheets that he had on his computer to communicate with these people. I mean, everything from training them and getting them up to speed to making sure that he maintains the quality of his product and the integrity of his product. Those were all really important things to him. And he realized that he really couldn't do that without going digital. So, folks like him, business owners that are looking to make the production process a lot more efficient, will kind of gravitate towards technology. And you can leverage technology to do many things. Like you can set up your processes in advance. You can have, you can manage your work orders digitally. So maybe you have a limited team that is on site, and you want to send them work orders digitally, and you want to be able to track that in real time. Well, guess what? If you have a system, you can do that. And it becomes very seamless, so that, you cut out manual processes and you actually become more efficient. You can also, by putting everything in a system, you can keep track of historical processes in order to maintain the high quality of your product. So if you perfect your process, you want to be able to document it so that if you bring in new people, they can follow it to a T, or, you don't forget about it next year and you can go back and do the same thing if you need to, or keep improving upon it. And then the last point is really about scaling your business. I know during this time, you're probably maybe not thinking about hiring more employees, but down the road, if you do end up hiring more employees, or even if, some employees don't return, or, you end up letting go of some of them, unfortunately, you may want to, have a system where you recorded everything so that it's not living in people's heads and you don't have that business risk. But instead it's living in a system. So those are just some ways that you can drive efficiencies with production by leveraging technology. An additional thing, it's kind of a risk factor here, but it is about, if something goes wrong, are you able to trace your lots? Are you able to trace back to, if a consumer, in a bad situation says this lot was bad or this glass of wine was bad, can you trace it all the way back to what happened? And being able to trace your lots comes with technology, of course, because if you have it all in one system, you can kind of work backwards and actually see, okay, this glass came from this lot came from this batch, and therefore, this is what I did. Oh, maybe there was something wrong with a certain ingredient, or maybe we did something wrong in terms of, fermentation or something, so that you can easily go back and actually find the issue and either notify, others that may have affected batches, or, you can actually, get rid of whatever caused the issue. It may also help you maintain certain certifications, or even ensure compliance with traceability lots. There are many different benefits in terms of being able to have everything in a system and being able to track it forwards and backwards at any point in real time. Let's talk about accounting, because that's everyone's favorite topic. This is how I feel when I think about accounting. Lots of numbers floating around, but accounting is one of the core, aspects of your business that I think everyone understands that is really, really important, especially when it comes to calculating your costs, what's going out of your business and then what's coming into your business in terms of revenue and what's selling. One of the things that we hear from, winery owners and craft beverage producers all the time is the importance of being able to calculate COGS, which stands for cost of goods sold. Being able to have the landed costs, which kind of entail many different things, like everything from the price of the goods, the packaging cost, the shipments, insurance, custom duties, any other cost that goes into producing your product, is really, really important. So you don't want to just stay at the very basics of, here are the ingredients I put in, maybe a label or two, and that's the cost of my product. A lot more goes into it. So you want to be able to calculate all of those in detail so that you can see and identify patterns and spot inefficiencies, or spot efficiencies so that you can improve even more. So by having visibility into your COGS and having a good accounting system and tracking everything, backwards all the way into your business, you're able to understand your business and products profitability a lot better, which helps you make better pricing decisions, better sales strategy decisions, and just overall better business decisions. It also may have a tax and compliance implication as you start to report out to the TTB. You probably need a lot of these costs to be able to report those out. So tons of implications here. One way that you can do that is by making sure that you leverage an integration between your inventory and production management system to your accounting system. And this is just one example here that I'm showing. But basically, being able to automate certain things may actually help you be more accurate with your reporting and eliminate a lot of manual processes. For example, with Ecos, we're integrated with both QuickBooks and Xero as accounting systems. And what our customers tell us is that by having that integration and automating that process, we actually save them anywhere between 15 to 20 plus hours per month from having to do manual journal entry recording into their accounting system. And everything is synced and everything's kind of real time. So basically, for example, when you're issuing an invoice, your inventory is depleted automatically into the ecosystem, and then the system also automatically creates a journal entry to record all the costs on the right account and invoice from the accounting system, which saves a ton of time. As I'm talking to quite a few winery owners, they tell me this is really important because that saves their accountants from having to manually input those things into the system. You don't want your accountants or to be paying your accountants to do very basic work. You want to leverage them to do more advanced work. So every hour that you pay them, or however you pay your accountants, you want to make sure you're getting the best ROI out of it. So make sure that your technologies actually talk to each other and that you're connecting the dots and you're actually driving efficiencies across the board. This is something that technology and automation can help you do. As I said earlier, these are some of the benefits of having an accounting integration with your inventory system. It can help you, save hours, drive compliance, reduce double entry, and it also streamlines communication between departments so that you don't have to rely on manual efforts. You can actually do it automatically. Anyone can log in and see everything in one system. There's no risk of misinterpretation. An additional thing that we all have to do is, of course, creating the reported wine premises operations for the TTB. By tracking everything in a system and not having manual ways and spreadsheets floating around, you can actually produce these reports on a monthly or quarterly basis, however frequently you do it, much, much faster. So you can really save hours every quarter by doing that. And you ensure higher accuracy and you ensure that you stay compliant with the TTB. And you also have an audit trail in case of an excise tax audit. Then the last thing I wanted to talk through is really sales management. And there are many different channels of sales, but I'm kind of going to focus more on the wholesale side, and then Chris will dive into the DTC side. But when it comes to sales management, if you do have a sales team that goes out there and sells to restaurants, bars, or other sources, you want to be able to track that in a system, and you want all that to be connected so that your salespeople are making the best decisions. And your distribution is the most optimized. So you want to be able to identify patterns, velocity of sales by product. You want to be able to do analytics, and a system can help you do that. You can have a team that you manage remotely, and you can track things and assign activities, and you can tell your salespeople what to do, and you can track what they're doing in one system so that you don't lose track of that. You also want to have a system that allows them to do certain things in a more automated way so they can create like sales orders and invoices on the go, so that we all know salespeople don't love sitting behind a desk, so that they don't have to do that. Ecos helps our customers do all these things, but having a system that helps your salespeople track that is just as important, and it kind of helps you connect the dots between the two sides. So in summary, when it comes to the technology advantage, doing things manually, it might be easy, it might be cheap, absolutely, but it does leave you prone to human error. I cannot tell you how many times I've heard someone say that their Excel spreadsheet was broken, someone deleted it, someone accidentally overwrote it. Having a system that is a software will make sure that you're less prone to human error. You may not, easily lose data. You will have better communication with a piece of software that everyone can access, and it'll be more real time, so you can make more proactive decisions. Speed is an advantage these days, and having a system or multiple systems that are connected to each other will help you make better decisions faster, which can mean life or death in the end. So when it comes to looking for a vendor, a software vendor, no matter who you're looking at or what you're looking at, make sure you follow these four or five key things. Number one is always make sure that whatever the technology is, is a fit to meet your objectives. You go into this as, this is what I want to achieve. Your technology better help me achieve that. Otherwise, it's not a good fit. So you always want to make sure there's a good fit between the technology and your objectives. You also want to make sure that all of your users have access to it. So if you have a system that needs to be used by multiple people, whether it's your production folks, your accounting folks, or whoever else, make sure everyone has access to it. If things are in the cloud, this should be very easy to do. And systems should be very open. People should be able to have access to data, and there should be different levels of control of what people can see. So make sure that whenever you're talking to your vendors, you're asking them, how many users can I have in the system? Can all my users see everything? Can I control who sees what? Because those are really, really important considerations. Another thing that, even though we're talking about technology, I think it's important to consider people. Don't just buy a piece of software for the software, but buy it because of the people that back it up. You want to have good customer support, hands-on onboarding and training, and just ongoing people that you can reach out to, because you're always going to need some help over time. The fourth thing is, is your software cloud-based, and is it accessible from anywhere and any device? The benefits of cloud-based are many. It makes it accessible from anywhere and any device, which means that you can be at home doing something, or you can be at your office or your location and doing something, or you can be on the road and having access to the same data. So that's really, really important. But another, underlying sort of important thing about cloud-based is the fact that it's ever evolving. You don't have to download something on your computer. You don't have to worry about paying extra fees to download the 2020 version versus the 2019 version. It's always there. It's always getting, updated in real time, and you're always getting the latest and greatest version of it. And then the last thing is make sure that you're getting the right analytics, reporting, and business intelligence capabilities. No matter what you're doing, there's going to be some analytics behind it. So make sure that you're asking your vendors, what are those reporting capabilities and analytics capabilities that I can use with the software, because that's really what's going to give you that extra value from using it. So with that, I'm going to stop talking about back of the house stuff, and I'm going to turn it over to Chris, who's going to talk to us about DTC trends.
Christina, thank you. Thanks for giving that great presentation. And hello, everybody. My name is Chris Tout. I'm with VineSpring. VineSpring is a winery e-commerce platform, or really was born as a winery e-commerce platform, but we've expanded to really anything in the craft beverage alcohol space. So that includes breweries and distilleries and cideries. And I think for those in the winery space who aren't familiar with ECOS, which Christine, I understand, is short for ecosystem. It's an easy way to remember EKOS. They were born in the brewery space, and now ECOS is providing their business management software to wineries. So sort of an exciting time to be able to see what lessons learned on one side can impact the other, what lessons learned in wineries VineSpring hopes to bring to breweries. So I started VineSpring in 2011. I'm one of the co-founders, and we began VineSpring with a mission to simplify selling, specifically at the time wine, but now beverage alcohol direct to consumer. So in doing so, we recognize that establishing a relationship with your customers through a club or an allocation is really how you're going to improve the lifetime sales of those customers. You're going to keep them coming back again and again as customers. And if you guys are selling online today, you're most likely using either an industry specific solution like VineSpring, or you're using something like Squarespace Commerce or WooCommerce, something non-industry specific. The COVID era, what a phenomenal time we live in. And I had to throw a slide in here from Nielsen to back up what Christina said, that these last few months have shown a boom in online sales. Those selling beverage alcohol, wineries in particular, have done a better job than, say, breweries or distilleries, simply because they have more curated mailing lists when compared to those other businesses. So e-commerce sales are way up for wineries who have strong mailing lists and who are able to quickly send out messages to their mailing lists, engage with their mailing lists. In fact, I know several clients who I've spoken to who have already surpassed their 2019 sales numbers, really because of COVID. Breweries who have been using the VineSpring platform have been doing okay with, of course, their club or their mailing list, but they have nowhere near the size of mailing lists that wineries do. That DTC model just wasn't as well established, and so they were much more reliant upon the tap rooms. So breweries have not had as much luck. This is largely represented by wineries. So the question really is what to do, where to get started. And what I'd like to do is explore ways in this presentation on how you can curate and maintain customers today without spending a fortune. And that's really important to me. This is geared toward perhaps the smaller craft producers who are really being budget conscious. So the goal to improve lifetime sales is, and to create repeat buyers, it's first you have to define your audience. Seems obvious, but have you really thought about who your typical buyer is? Things like the age range, where they live, what's their typical income range, or even interests. Once you know this, tools like Instagram, Facebook, and other social tools make it really easy for you to seek out new people and hopefully convert them into lifetime buyers. Once they've bought from you, the second thing is you want to build a better relationship with them. There's tools that help you do this automatically, like MailChimp, something that you might already be using today. And then make yourself available. We're craft producers, so like we often don't have large teams. It's possible using technology to connect more easily with people, not just over email, phone, text, but you can create that in-person experience virtually. We've seen that during COVID, where the acceptance of Zoom has just, or any video conferencing tool has just exploded. So make yourself available. I'll talk about a few tools that'll help you do that today. And lastly, getting connected. Christina was hitting on this, the importance of integration, and I'm gonna discuss a few sort of differences between direct integration and then also APIs and webhooks. I won't geek out too much on that. You guys can connect with me at another time if you really want to get into the details, but I hope you take away a better understanding of what APIs and webhooks do to help you connect your business data. All right, so Instagram, I mentioned it earlier, and I'm gonna use it as an example to define your audience. And this is the image that captured me to buying a dog bed for my dogs. So I was perusing Instagram. This came up. It was claiming that it was the most comfortable dog bed in the world, that it relieved anxiety. And I thought, what the heck? Click the link in Instagram. I clicked, I bought. Sure enough, My dog loved it, totally loved it. And I'm like, why did that image pop up in my Instagram feed? Well, I'm a guy who posts images of my dogs. I love my dogs. I talk about my dogs. I even have golf head covers that are custom made. It was a gift from my wife, and a best gift ever, to look like my two dogs. So this ad was built for me, and I clicked. I thought, I'll buy one. We'll see how it goes. Well, sure enough, dog loved it, so I had to buy one for the other dog. So let's think about how they got that ad in front of me. So this is a screen grab from actually MailChimp. If you didn't know, MailChimp is integrated with Instagram so that you can create ads very easily. I encourage you to go, if you're using MailChimp, to go and look at this. So you can set up an ad in Instagram by simply click on the Instagram link, and it'll say, who is your audience? In this case, I'm looking at do I want new people? Do I want existing contacts already in my MailChimp account? I chose a custom audience because I wanted to target states where I ship wine, New York, California, for example. I wanted to apply it to all genders, and I wanted to make sure that the age range was within what I feel my audience is. I actually chose 40 and up with an interest in wine. So boom, my audience is defined. Here you can see the final page, and the thing that I want to direct your attention to is at the bottom. Then you define a budget. I defined $50 and said, let's see where that gets us. And I set it loose. This example generated 3 new customers over 2 days, so it more than paid for the cost of running the ad. It was a really good idea. So it's about building better relationships. And again, MailChimp makes this easy. So this is a slide from MailChimp. Step 1, and Christina hit on this, connecting all your data. You want to get your data from your store, your e-commerce store, from any other data sources. You want to get it into the system so that you can start to organize what you know. So once you have your data in there, and as much data as possible, you can start organizing people into segments. That allows you to use the MailChimp tools or tools of any other CRM, customer relationship management, or other system that you might be using to get to know them and understand who your buyers and non-buyers are. Who engages more than others, who clicks on an email more than others. You've got that data sitting out there. Now's the time to leverage it so that you can turn those audience insights into action. This is where it gets really fun, because automation allows you to deliver the right message at the right time to the right person. That's what happened to me with that dog bed scenario in Instagram. So it's a wonderful way for you to start putting out and personalizing these interactions. MailChimp is one that I've been hitting on. It's one that, when we started VineSpring, wasn't very popular. Now I'm willing to bet over 90% of our clients use MailChimp. It's great. On the automation front, it can handle your abandoned carts. It can tie into your shopping cart software to send out an abandoned cart email on a periodic basis that's personalized. You can use it for things like thanking first-time buyers. Maybe, they got an order receipt, but maybe the next day you'd like to send them a more personal message during business hours automatically. You can do that kind of thing. Re-engaging customers who haven't bought in a while. I mean, what a wonderful idea, especially if you get to define the rules. This person missed buying out of the last release. Let's get them into a segment and send them a message post-release that's personal automatically. You're going to drive some of those people. They're going to feel a connection to you to buy more of your product. And then another automation through MailChimp, rewarding customers who have been buying for a long period of time with a special offer that can help drive traffic and drive sales back. I wanted to throw in a more advanced option that I see VineSpring clients use, and that is Infusionsoft. There's many others, Salesforce. One came across my attention last week called Flowdesk. These more advanced ones may not have a direct integration with your software, but they might have an API and they might have webhooks that allow you to exchange data between the two. So don't feel limited. I'm just using these as examples, but there's lots of ways to engage marketing automation software. So let's talk about how to share your brand and connect with these buyers. And really, I got a kick out of this. What a, again, phenomenal time we live in. During social distancing, we can't forget the power of human connection. Christina made mention in the Google Trends searching how people were looking for Napa wineries as a search term, and it was spiking on the results because people are looking for an experience, looking for a connection. So it's really more pronounced now than it has been in a long time. It's more relevant now. So this can be done remotely. And of course, you guys know, you've been seeing virtual tastings all over the place, but creativity, people have been getting creative here too. This is a VineSpring client named The Find. They're in Danville, California. And The Find has taken a simple calendar application called appointment application called Calendly, tied it together with their Google Calendar so that it shows availability while they're on the run, maybe even while the shop is closed. It doesn't have to be during normal business hours necessarily. And they've tied the two together so that people can do a virtual shopping session with one of the proprietors behind The Find. Now, these guys literally opened their doors the week before shelter-in-place orders were announced. So talk about timing. They've made the most of it. And through the use of Calendly, they've been able to connect, and then Zoom, because when somebody schedules a appointment, they're able to then face one-on-one and talk about preferences and the wines that they have available. They've been able to improve their sales. Not only improve their sales, again, the lifetime sales. Because now, once it's a success, you're gonna keep coming back to this avenue again and again. So let's talk about a few tools about connecting virtually and the in-person experience. Calendly, that's a way to keep scheduling separate, to enforce social distancing. Maybe you're doing pickup events where you need to schedule people, 30 minutes separately from one another. Calendly is inexpensive. It's an easy way to get up and going with a simple scheduling tool tied to your Google Calendar or whatever other calendaring software you use. A more advanced one, you may have heard OpenTable has jumped into this space. And I believe now through the end of 2020, they're really being aggressive in trying to get wineries to adopt use their scheduling software. So OpenTable, which has historically been for restaurants, they have a great scheduling tool, and you can, it's a more advanced version of something like Calendly because you get table management, really flexible payment options for your customers. I'm highlighting these two too because they're things that we aren't often thinking about. During this time of COVID, it's pushed people into this decision-making time, and those who are taking advantage of it are jumping on board and trying these things out. So VineSpring, I wanted to throw up a slide of what we're directly integrated to and draw a distinction between what an API and webhook does versus a direct integration. So VineSpring is integrated with a variety of applications that our clients find useful, like MailChimp or Calendly. We're connected to things like Avalara or ShipCompliant for taxes. ShipStation connects to all sorts of common carriers. Square for point of sale. So it's important that you look at your provider and you say, what tools are they directly integrated to? And that'll be the easiest way to get up and running with something something effective to accomplish your goals. But let's look at the other side, and that's webhooks and API. API stands for Application Programming Interface, and they're another way of being able to connect two systems together. So look at your systems and see if they support an API and if they support webhooks. I'm going to do my best to describe this, so hopefully I don't bore anybody here. But again, connect with me if you'd like more detail. An API, this application programming interface, is a polling mechanism. What does that mean? It means that you have, let's say, two systems that have endpoints in both of them. Customers in this system need to talk to customers in this system. And an API says, okay, these are wired together in some way, but on a periodic basis, it's going to poll to say, you got anything new for me? And system A will say, nope, don't have anything new for you. 4 hours later, got anything new for me? Nope, don't have anything new. Webhooks are event driven. So that means when a new customer is created, it just fires the webhook and the data goes across the wire. Whether that other endpoint is listening or not for it, hopefully it is, that's a more immediate real-time solution to transferring data. So APIs have been around for a long time. Webhooks are a bit more modern, but they're two terms you should be looking for connecting different systems. I found that a cute way of describing this. APIs or polling mechanisms are like knocking on your friend's door and asking if they have any sugar. You don't know if they have any sugar, but you're gonna go over there and go, hey, got any sugar? Webhooks are like someone just your neighbor just got some sugar and they just threw it at your house. Are you gonna be there to receive it? Hopefully. One way that you can wire those two things together and to give you a leg up, perhaps without the need of a developer, is an application like Zapier. So Zapier is a middleware application that allows you to receive the webhook and then push it somewhere else, or pull for the data and then push it somewhere else, as opposed to hiring a developer to come in and really wire all that up for you, which can be very costly. Zapier can help you as a craft producer to at least potentially wire up two things while on a budget. So I hope that makes sense. And again, always happy to describe in more detail. So let's go over the goal. The goal is to improve the lifetime sales of your customers. And one, define your audience. Figure out, really analyze who is it on your mailing list that your buyers are. Let's go find more of those people and leverage technology to get our message in front of them. Once they're buyers, build a better relationship with them. Use automated marketing software. Use MailChimp or a CRM or something that is going to be able to allow you to create an automation. And as you get more advanced, to create really neat workflows that react to deliver to the customer's behavior, to deliver the right message at the right time to the right person. 3, use technology to make yourself available. Just because we're sheltering in place or we have 6 feet of distance we have to keep between ourselves, sitting here behind a desk, you can connect to people on a personal basis. You just got to try. And you just got to use something like Zoom or Calendly tied to your calendar so that you're doing it effectively. And then 4th, get connected. Look at your systems that you have currently. What do they connect to? How can you take advantage of that? And I think you will start driving better lifetime sales for your customers. Thank you. That's my last slide. And thank you to the Wine Industry Network for putting this on. You guys are leaders in this space for getting the message out. And I really appreciate you including both Christina and me in this discussion. So thank you, Nick and George.
Well, Chris, thank you for your kind words. And obviously it's a team effort, right? So we've got a platform, we've got an audience, but you know, we're lucky to have relationships like we do, right? Where we can put people who've got some expertise and something to share with our audience. So anyway, super interesting presentation. I'm going to jump right into it. There was a number of questions. We're not going to get to every single question. So for those of you in our audience, if we don't get to your question, there will be a subsequent email. We'll have a link so you can watch a replay of the entire session, and we'll get to every single question that you turn in. But one of the most important questions, and I saw different versions of it, had to do with how do you present this to an owner who may be not as technologically savvy, who doesn't understand the cost involved, who doesn't understand the onboarding, right? So we've been using maybe a legacy system, and now we're going to jump into something else. What tools or what advice do you have for somebody who's trying to present this to an owner? And Chris, why don't we start with you, and then Christina, why don't you go ahead and pile on?
Yeah, well, I am a big fan of baby steps. So I always think that you're going to have a goal, something in mind that you say, you know what, automation is the thing that we're after, or I'm just not happy unless we have, club software that offers customized options for our club members. So once you have that goal in mind, I think it's looking at your existing systems to really analyze, is there a way to get this done? Can I use a third-party product to baby step my way in, like MailChimp? And then I don't think that you always have to go and just wholesale replace everything, is my point. I think that you can really look even outside of this industry, or at tools that, a friend or something you just enjoy using that isn't maybe even built for beverage alcohol, you might be able to leverage it and do so more simply than you think. And I think that the owners will sort of gravitate toward, all right, I'm willing to give that a try. Now, if you have an owner who's all in, well, now you can really look at more larger moves, replacements to your architecture. But that's a much bigger conversation.
Yeah. Christina, anything to add?
Yeah, I think Chris said it really well. Looking at your goal and what you're looking to accomplish is really important. The way that I think communication is really effective is if you can tell the owner or whoever makes the decision that by doing this, you will get this out of it. So basic ROI, if you can say, we won't have to hire another person if we get this piece of software, or we can, save X number of dollars by doing this more efficiently. Speak their language, make sure that you've given them some kind of ROI. Another tip that I'll give is make sure that you plan ahead. You don't want to just spring up these things last minute into an owner or your CFO or whoever you're talking to. Kind of take a look at the next 6 to 12 months and figure out, what are you going to need? Be a little bit more aggressive there so that you can go and ask for that budget, and you can appear like you're actually, you're prepared. You're saying, based on the projections that you're telling me, in the next 6 to 12 months, we will need this piece of software, or we'll need to hire another person here, or we'll need to cut back there. And now all of a sudden, you're much more of a consultant to them than just an employee.
Right. Well, I'm going to pile on and say something that I think both of you left out, that they can also call on people like yourself to come in and help explain it, right? Because it's one thing to try to explain what a webinar that you just watched, or revisit a conversation that you just had, versus bringing either one of you two in to help create clarity around the process as well, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and George, I think a great example of that is my last little point about APIs and webhooks. I mean, I think people, at least they talk about APIs, but they have no idea what it entails to actually take an API and make two systems talk to one another.
Right. No, exactly. Christina, I think this is more for you. You were talking, you had some slides talking about business visibility and looking in, and we had a question about the role that budgets play. I don't think there was anything that really necessarily talked about budgets. It talked a lot about the visibility that the technology would provide into cost of goods, as an example, or cost of goods as you're progressing along. But how important is it to make sure that there's enough discipline to create those budgets and continue to revisit actuals versus budgets and going, throughout the process? And yeah, Christine, I'll start with you on that one.
Yeah, absolutely. I think if you talk to any CFO or business owner that is very data driven, you're not going to convince them until you actually show them numbers. And there's just some very objective power to numbers, actually. So when you look at coming up with a budget, or actually leveraging data to show good business management, you want to be able to support every point that you make with a data point, whether it's a historical one or whether it's an industry one. So one example may be that, you go to your owner and you say, I was analyzing all this data and I noticed this wine is performing at 2x the efficiency of this other wine. Maybe we should sell more of this, and maybe a good avenue to do it is online. Let's set up an e-commerce store. This is a very basic example, but that's one way to do it, is to make sure that as you're budgeting or as you're planning out for the future and you're making good decisions, is that you have access to the right data and you're actually looking at it, analyzing it, and bringing it to the table.
Gotcha. Chris, anything to add to that?
No, well, I'll add that it's exciting to think of Ecos and where they came from, their founding, which was in that craft brewery space. They've been able to build a business management tool that enables those questions to be answered at a reasonable cost. And I think big ERP systems in the past have been relegated to like the biggest players. Right. This is an exciting time. Cloud-based technologies, companies like Ecos are really bringing that, there shouldn't be a reason in the future that small producers, if asked, what are your cost of goods sold, can't answer it. And that would be really nice. I'd be willing to bet most cannot answer that, the small producers.
So there's another question that talked about basically the spike that we saw in e-commerce. And how much of that do you two think was driven by pricing, aggressive pricing, or free shipping, or a combination of the two? And are you seeing any changes as we're sort of coming out of that, and this is just becoming more of a normal for at least the time being? What are you seeing small producers do? Because obviously that's impacting their margins, right? I know they need to move product, but how do you get back to a more profitable pricing strategy in the future?
I'll take that one. Prior to COVID, the conversation was really around, things like, free shipping or the Amazon model. Do you discount your product? During COVID, it's become an opportunity, a necessity, where you're just connecting with customers who love your brand, and you're not necessarily discounting it. You're bringing the value to them, and you're leveraging the tools to make curbside pickup available, to make it, I know several producers who, on Saturdays, or they designate maybe 2 days a week, where they themselves, the winemaker owners, were going out and delivering wine in their local area, driving for an entire day, and using it as a moment to show up with a mask on, with their product to deliver that wine. So the value became more the personal connection, and really exemplifying that across any channel that you could, not so much the discount on the product. Now, to be fair, if you're driving it in your local area to deliver it, there's a cost to do that. Most people were saying, hey, we're willing to do that for you. And that really built customer loyalty. So I think it'll pay dividends for years to come.
Yeah. Christine, this question's for you. When at the early part of your presentation, you talked about Google Trends and looking at what your customers are searching for and some of the insights that would provide. And there was a question just said, like, how do you do that? How do you know or feed Google who your customers are so that they can then tell you what they're searching for?
I should clarify, when I said customers, I don't mean your specific customers. I meant more so consumers. So there's some privacy laws out there that, you can't nilly-willy track people. But to Chris's points earlier, there are tools out there that can help you track, marketing automation tools that can help you track legally what people are doing based on their activity. One example may be something like a Marketo, or Salesforce even has a tool that basically helps you cookie your prospects as they come to your website and they take certain actions. and they give you their information. You can actually see when they come back, or how they came to your website, what keyword search terms they used, and all that stuff. You can also do, Chris kind of mentioned this earlier, some paid advertising, either through Google or other avenues, and those will usually give you a ton of insights into certain consumer segments. Depending on what tool you're using, they may tell you, here's one consumer segment that you can target, and then you can see how that's doing. Or you can even upload audiences so that you can do lookalikes, et cetera. There's a ton of advanced marketing tools out there that you can do a lot of good things with.
Okay. All right. So I know that this was really talking about technology in general. We didn't, wasn't all about plugging VineSpring or plugging Ecos specifically, but I'm going to go there for just a second, and I'm going to. So Christine, I'll start with you. Let's say you've got my attention. I'm interested in proceeding forward. I certainly see the benefits of leveraging technology. And as a quick aside, right? I don't think our industry we've ever seen as rapid an adoption of technology ever, right? As we've seen in the last 3 or 4 months. But Christine, if I said, okay, I'm all in on Ecos, like, how hard is it to, gather all that historical data and plug it in so you've got a reference point, and getting, from the point of let's get started to where you're using it? How long does that typically take?
Yeah, so I won't sugarcoat it. You can't flip it on overnight.
Right.
That's because you get so much power out of the tool. So you need to put in some time. But the average time frame we see is anywhere between 3 to 4 weeks on average for customers. And we take a very concerted approach into having a dedicated onboarding specialist that follows you along with an Ecos. So when you do sign up with Ecos, you have a person that makes sure that you're setting up your system correctly. We actually help you set it up. And you're not just signed up and you're left out there to be on your own.
Right.
So over the first 4 weeks or so of your onboarding, you have someone at Ecos that helps you get there and be successful. And then after that, as I talked about earlier, we have a on-site customer support team here in the US that helps you on an ongoing basis. If you have questions or any issues you encounter, you can always call or put in a ticket, and someone will help you. An actual live person will help you. In addition to that, we have a customer success team that is always there. We actually do, regular check-ins with our customers to make sure that you're fully, leveraging the system and you're taking advantage of all the different types of things that are happening in the system.
Sure.
So human interaction is just as important in technology as in anything else.
Gotcha. Chris, same question for you. VineSpring, I love it. I love everything you're telling me. How long is it going to take me to get from A to Z?
So we have clients who sign up and launch the same day, but more sort of with more established wineries who are maybe transitioning in from either another provider, another system. I like to tell them, budget a month for, just like Christine is saying, 3 to 4 weeks is a very comfortable amount of time, because you're taking into consideration how your website's going to connect to the e-commerce experience, how the data is going to be brought in. And just like Ecos, VineSpring is a big believer of, you can have the best software in the world, but if there isn't somebody there to back you up when you need help, then, it just sucks. So VineSpring is really adamant about customer service and customer support and being there to help these craft producers. We're a small business, just like they're a small business. We want to succeed together. But let me go back to, we have customers who sign up the same day. The e-commerce store, VineSpring has options to provide out of the box. So you just use our hosted store to connect to your website. All you have to do is upload product and pricing. Merchant processing, horribly complicated most of the time, where you go to your bank, you get a gateway, you have to figure out how to wire it all together. VineSpring is a partner with Stripe, and our agreement is built for beverage alcohol, so for selling alcohol. So we do the legwork to just embed immediately and be able to immediately take sales on the VineSpring platform using Stripe. So we're trying to remove as much complexity as possible, but I'll give one quick story, looking back at my slide where I talked about directly integrated versus not directly integrated. And to really put a asterisk on Christina's slide about the number of hours of doing the manual work. VineSpring has a direct integration with MailChimp. We built that in-house. We push over the entire store, all your products, the retail pricing, your customer purchase history. You can really, with that connection, just upload data to VineSpring and it will immediately be available in MailChimp. Well, if you're using another email provider, let's say Vertical Response, you're downloading that data and uploading it to Vertical Response. And that's problematic. I mean, versus just having it work versus downloading and uploading. There's real value that can be gleaned in choosing those directly connected programs to get the most out of it.
Yeah. Well, the thing that I loved hearing the most is really the focus on the support piece, right? Because I know from our own experiences and some of the different platforms that we use for whatever purpose, maybe our conference registration as an example, something's bound to go wrong, right? So it's just the way it is. Having someone available on the other end of that line when you need them is as important as anything else.
Absolutely.
So
yeah,
we're getting ready to wrap it up. Christina, any final thoughts that you'd like to share? Anything that we didn't cover that you'd like to leave with our audience?
No, just one thing is to always keep looking forward. Things will change. Things will get better over time. Things will go back down. So if I had to share one thing is keep adapting, keep looking at new things, maintain your traditional, your tradition of how you make your product, of how you run your business, but always keep evolving, always keep making it better, and don't be afraid of technology. It's actually there to help you. It's not there to bog you down. It can actually make you run 10 times faster with half the resources. So don't be afraid to look at that.
Well, I thought like some of your slides were just fantastic. I'd seen the Darwin one, but the one that you had up there that when things are hard, prepare for when things are easy. When things are easy, prepare for when things are hard. I thought that was great. So really great job, Christina. Chris, any parting thoughts for our audience?
I echo what Christina said, and really just want to say thank you to you guys. You're doing an awesome job, and this platform really brings a lot of value to craft producers who are looking for enhancement or change, or who are hungry. This is a first step. This is a baby step. Listen to this, say, all right, I'm gonna go out and do whatever it might be. If you have questions at all, I'm sure Christina, like we're both available. Please reach out to us anytime.
Well, thank you guys. Appreciate it. And just as a reminder to everyone watching, we will be making the presentation available. We will be getting to all the questions that we were not able to get to today. And I want to thank you for all your time. Chris, Christina, thank you for your time and being with us. I look forward to doing this again. It'll be interesting to maybe revisit our situation in, a year from now and just see how things continue to evolve.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much. Take care.
Bye.